I've got some good news and I've got some bad news. It almost fits. Welcome back to Craft Computing, everyone. As always, I'm Jeff. Today we have a little bit of a different comparison going on. A couple weeks ago, if you might remember, I built this InWin A1 Plus system with a Ryzen 5 2600 6-core CPU. Not my best pour ever. When I built the system, I made a little bit of a different choice for the cooler. Rather than using the Wraith Stealth that came with the Ryzen 2600, I opted to go for the Wraith Spire, which is the larger RGB version that comes with the 2600X and higher CPUs. A couple of different reasons for that. Number one, it is an ITX box and I wanted a little bit better cooling performance than the Wraith Stealth would offer. Also, the Wraith Spire comes with an RGB ring on the top of it, and the ring is going to perfectly match the RGB lights that are inside of the A1 Plus. The other reason I opted for the Wraith Spire was to do a little bit of overclocking on this system. I wanted to be able to hit 4 GHz or 4.1 GHz without stressing the box too much. So, did I make the right choice in that regard? Well, the Wraith Stealth under stock frequencies hits 78 degrees Celsius under max load when running Cinebench, so an AVX workload, pretty much the worst case scenario for this box. And 78 degrees honestly is pretty respectable and something I would be happy to run in this system. The Wraith Spire, on the other hand, only hits 68 degrees Celsius under that same Cinebench load and does so with a little bit of RGB flare. However, the Wraith Spire, if you buy it separately from the Ryzen 5 2600, is a $40 cooler. Not necessarily worth it, and in fact, I would rather spend an extra $20 to get the Ryzen 5 2600X and get this cooler included with the package. Overclocking the system to 4.1 GHz, and the Wraith Spire reaches a max temp of 93 degrees Celsius. Little bit less comfortable with those numbers, but still not throttling and not in danger of damaging the CPU. The Wraith Stealth, let's just say it wasn't all that happy with any kind of an overclock. And that leads perfectly into today's question. Are either of these AMD coolers the right choice for a mini ITX box like this? Well, my friends over at Scythe reached out to me and asked if I wanted to review the Big Shuriken 3 that they just released. It's a $45 mini ITX cooler with a 120mm top-down design. There are 5 heat pipes on this thing to go along with the 120mm cooler, and the whole package sits only about 63mm tall. I wanted to review this with the Dr. Saber Sentry that I built last month. Unfortunately, that case has a max cooler height of about 43mm, and this just was not going to fit, at least with the fan on it anyway. Right off the bat, physically, I can tell you it is a little bit shorter than the Wraith Spire cooler, although it is still taller than the Wraith Stealth. One big advantage I do see right out of the gate, however, is this will be cooling your memory top down, whereas this one just cools your CPU package. So we'll see if that's a factor when I get this installed. I did want to test this cooler inside of an ITX box, and I figured the A1 Plus would be the perfect candidate for this. So let's go ahead and get this installed and find out if it is worth the $45 upgrade, or if you should just stick with one of the 2 AMD-based coolers. As I alluded to in the intro, I did have to make a minor modification to the A1 Plus to get the Big Shuriken 3 cooler to fit. You'll notice right up here, this little window is now see-through. That normally holds the Qi charger in the A1 Plus, which I'm also holding in my hand. Now, you can see there's not a lot of height to the Qi charger unit. However, it was blocking me from being able to mount the fan inside of the case. As this is the only mini ITX case that I have currently that will actually fit the Big Shuriken 3, I wanted to go ahead and do the test in this system. We're just gonna have to do it without the Qi charger. So note, if you have an A1 Plus, this cooler will not fit inside of here. All right, installation was pretty straightforward. The only thing I had an issue with was the fan is very, very close to the top of this case here. I knew it would be. It was a little difficult to get the top 2 screws installed into the fan. Other than that, this thing went together easy as you please. Let's go and see how she does. All right, we're loaded up. Let's go ahead and run stock frequencies first and see where it lands. I have to say, early indications, I'm already very impressed with this cooler. We've been running for the first couple of seconds here. We're only topping out at about 60 degrees, and it's kind of fluctuating between 59 and 60 on that mark. And I have to say, it's probably slightly quieter than the Spire is. There, we're starting to climb up just a hair. We just hit 63 and still going up. Yeah, 63.5, so almost a 5 degrees Celsius delta from the first test with the Spire. 15 degrees off from the Stealth. So yeah, for $45, this might not be too bad. But we know stock frequencies only tell half of the story. Let's go ahead and get this thing overclocked and then we'll run it again. I already have an overclock dialed in for the CPU. Unfortunately, this is not the best example of a Ryzen 5 2600, but it is a pretty high voltage for one, so that'll actually do well for the cooling test. We're running at 4.1 gigahertz at 1.45 volts. I was able to hit 4.2 gigahertz, but it was only stable for Cinebench R15. When I switched over to Cinebench R20 a couple of weeks ago, it started giving me some instability. So we're running at 4.1, and thus far it's been rock solid stable. All right, there's our 4.1 gigahertz at 1.45 volts. Moment of truth time. Will this perform better than a Wraith Spire? Again, about midway through, very impressive results. We're sitting right around 85 degrees Celsius. Yeah, we'll call that 87. Nice. And hey, we hit our highest score yet on the 2600, 3141. Excellent. So conclusion time. Overall, definitely not a bad cooler at all. I'm actually a little bit surprised. I was expecting it to come in right on par with the Wraith Spire, not beat it by a pretty significant margin in both stock and overclock tests. Overclocked, we beat it by about 7 degrees, and stock frequencies, we beat it by about 5. Pretty decent value at $45. Now, I will say again, compatibility is going to be the biggest hurdle in this cooler. This is an ITX box, however, like I said, I did have to remove the Qi charger from the top of it. Also, memory height is going to be a major factor in this, as the cooler does extend over the RAM slots on this motherboard. It worked just fine with my Corsair LPX memory, however, I have a couple of kits like my Viper Steel series which would not fit underneath this cooler. If you are interested in picking up a Scythe Big Shuriken 3 for yourself, and it is a cooler that I do highly recommend given these results, affiliate links will be down in the video description. Every time you click on those, it really does help me keep the lights on around here and help keep content coming to you. As always, make sure to like this video if you liked it and subscribe to Craft Computing if you haven't done so already. Follow me on Twitter at Craft Computing and check out my Patreon if you'd like to financially back the channel. You'll get access to my exclusive Discord server where you can chat with myself and the other hosts from Talking Heads. As always, thank you guys so much for watching this one, and I will see you in the next video. Cheers all. Today's beer is actually from a brewery which I know the owners quite well. Dan and Julie down in Salem opened Ratchet Brewery about a year ago. And this is one of my favorite brews that they've been cooking up. It is the Rev It Up Stout. It's a 5.8% coffee stout, and it is absolutely fantastic. It's a stout, but it's lighter bodied. The roast is very, very good, very, very light, almost like a blonde coffee instead of a real thick dark roast. But it's a beer you can really have any time of day. You don't have to have it late at night. It's not a dessert beer. It's just a good, drinkable coffee stout. Really, really fantastic. Oh, good. If you're wanting to get into dark beers, this is probably one of the best examples you can find. However, you're probably not going to be able to find this because they're not doing much distribution of it. It's pretty much all kegs at this point, so you have to find it somewhere on draft in the greater Salem or Portland area. 5.8%, it is not a heavy ABV. You can drink this pretty regularly and have at least a couple of them before you move on to your next task for the day. But it is just a fantastic example of a coffee stout. And I'm not just saying that because I like Dan and Julie. I'm saying that because this is a genuinely really good beer.